I've thought for a long time, having worked from home part of because I'm an academic, I do a lot of work at home and I have young children. And I've always thought that the working from home trope is a bit of a trap, particularly for women. And part of that is because it's just very, very difficult to combine high level work that requires an enormous amount of focus with young children. And so what ends up happening is that anyone who works in close proximity to young children and is trying to do high level cognitive work, end up being fractured. And so you're being asked to focus on multiple things that both require a lot of focus and attention, and yet only for sort of 5 minutes at a time. Vonnegut has a wonderful short story called Harrison Bergeron, and it reminds me of that, where you just have these sort of alarms that go off in your head periodically. So I think that the work from home, though, it's even more of a trap for women than it is for men. It's difficult for both genders, but I think it's more difficult than it is for men. Because women often have more flexible jobs, which means that they may be they may be more likely to sort of try to fit work in around childcare responsibilities, whereas men tend to have jobs where they need to be in a specific space at a specific time. And so what very often happens is that you have people who sort of women are expected to sort of do everything, and men will be better able to block off that time. Even when members of the same household have similar kinds of jobs in terms of flexibility, women may be more likely to try to adapt their work schedule to their home, partially because they're socialized to respond to children's needs. And so women also are often the expert in childcare to begin with, because, and this is, again, one of the functions of a very long maternity leave, is that very often women become sort of the expert in what the child needs, in responding to that child's cues. And so therefore, when both partners are working at home, it then becomes the default position that the mother responds because she already knows what's going on. This is particularly true when it comes to school-age children. And so very often there's a kind of default where women are the ones who are already in communication with children's teachers. They're already the ones that have sort of systems in place for understanding the various apps involved in homeschooling now that we've all moved online. And so what ends up happening, of course, is that there's a difficulty in providing all of that information to your partner. And so again, women are sort of tasked with keeping track of all of this stuff at the same time that they're trying to do their own work. And so I know from friends of mine who are in dual academic homes, the women are very often the ones doing most of the homeschooling as well as their own jobs. And that, of course, is definitely leading to a reduction in productivity. I also think, there's a question with all of these trends about how much of it's biological, how much of it's socialization, how much of those things work together in really complicated ways. And I think there's at least some evidence that shows that there is, in fact, a biological sort of difference, particularly in terms of how women respond to stress. And so some of the research from psychology, for example, shows that that men will respond to stress with a kind of fight or flight mentality, while women tend to engage in affiliative or sort of nurturing behavior. So some psychologists call this tend and befriend, as opposed to fight or flight. And so during stressful times at home, men may disengage. They may flee into the solitude of writing and working in a home office, while women may be more likely to respond to that stress by trying to care for the needs of those around them. And if that's the case, then I think you're going to see that gender gap grow. And you're going to see much more of this kind of men sort of withdrawing to do their own work in a different part of the house, and women trying to juggle the needs of everyone in the family at the same time that they themselves are also trying to do that work. And at least anecdotally, again, from the people that I know who have both partners working at home right now, it seems to be much more difficult for women to tune out their children while working than it is for men. And again, whether that's socialization or there's a biological component, I am not qualified to say, but that does seem to be a pattern, and that seems to be borne out by the Inside Higher Ed piece, which is that female academics are experiencing a real productivity hit right now, and male academics are actually having sort of burst in productivity. And I think the trends that I've seen support.